To me, just two thoughts. One is I live in a state where I suspect President Trump will carry, we have 95 counties. I suspect he'll carry between 90 and 92 of them. When I drive not far from where I'm sitting, the Trump signs are quite large. And the mystery of the age is why these folks don't particularly care about everything we've just been talking about. Their view is, okay, maybe he's not as rich, but he's richer than me, and I'd like to be rich. That's one thought. The other is, yeah, he only paid $750 in taxes. Man, I wish I could get away with that. I mean, I think just on a gut check level, this will not be as damaging, or it won't be damaging at all, with this 45% of America that is with this guy no matter what. And that's the besetting and fascinating and dangerous story of the age. And it's linked to American history, because I think the great question is, in 1968, George Wallace got 13.5% of the popular vote. Donald Trump got 46.1% of the popular vote in 2016. How did that number grow? Through modernity, through an increasingly diversifying country. There's your answer, by the way, a large part of it. There's this reality gap in the country between what we've been talking about and the people who care about what we've been talking about, and a huge chunk of the country that simply doesn't care. And I think what Vice President Biden has to find a way to do, and I think he will, is I think this Scranton versus Manhattan dichotomy is working. He only needs a few folks who look like me in the right number of states to say, as Willie was saying, you know what, I've seen this show, I'm tired of it, let's move on. And maybe it'll be a big blue wave and a landslide, and this will seem like the Trump era will suddenly seem like an anomaly, but I don't think so. There are deep and fundamental questions about who we are that will not be resolved by this one election, and I think that's what we have to continue trying to figure out.
Yeah, I don't want to simplify this too much, but you asked what changed between George Wallace in '68 and Donald Trump in 2016 and even 2020. George Wallace didn't have a reality TV show that was beamed in to millions and millions of Americans' homes for over the course of a decade, that pushed the lie that he was an effective, no-nonsense businessman who was their idea of success. And I think, Willie, what is so devastating about this New York Times story is not the tax avoidance, not even the tax evasion. I mean, that reckoning will come after the election. It is that Donald Trump has been proven again to just be a terrible business person. I was talking to somebody that I know very well, who's a huge fan of Donald Trump, and just loved when it came out, absolutely loved The Art of the Deal. And after the first series of these articles came out about 6 months ago, I said, you do realize that when you were reading The Art of the Deal, page by page, word by word, you do realize that you were richer than Donald Trump. Because, of course, tax documents show that Donald Trump lost more money than any American over the course of the 80s and the early 1990s. Like, he was literally the worst businessman in all of America, lost more money. And so, boom, bust, and then boom, and then bust again. We're now learning again. He made money from The Apprentice. He's already lost all of that money, and it completely cuts in half the lie, the myth that was spread during The Apprentice that, of course, as you said, most business people in New York laughed at the prospect that Donald Trump was pitching himself to Americans as a good businessman, because they knew how bad he was. They are the ones whose loans he wouldn't repay. They were the ones whose construction bills he couldn't pay. They were the ones who he had been stiffing for 2 decades.
Yeah, and if you look in this New York Times piece, again, based on the IRS documents, his losses by 2002 were close to $353 million because he rolled them over and over and over. And then along comes The Apprentice to throw him a lifeline. But two things are true, that the story of Donald Trump as business tycoon is a fiction. And now that's all laid out in the last 2 days by the New York Times. His alleged empire was built, it turns out, on double stuffed Oreos and the Big and Tasty burger, which got him to The Apprentice before he got some more money. But it's also true what John is saying, that doesn't matter to a lot of people in this country. Will it matter to enough people to swing the election? We'll find out. And Steve Ratner, Donald Trump's defense of this has been meandering. One of the things he said, and I just want to give you a crack at it since you understand the numbers better than anyone here, is that he says, I paid many millions of dollars in taxes, but was entitled, like everyone else, to depreciation and tax credits. That's one of his defenses of paying $750 in federal income tax for a couple of recent years. What do you make of his attempted defense here?
Look, it's a rather sad day for America when we're sitting here debating whether our president is the worst businessman in history or one of the biggest tax evaders in history. But that, I guess, is the situation we find ourselves in today. So we've talked about his record as a businessman. Now let's talk a little bit about his record as a tax evader. So yeah, one way to not pay taxes is to lose a lot of money. Another way to not pay taxes is to play a lot of games with your taxes. And I don't want to get into depreciation and double entry bookkeeping and all that, but I thought I'd give you a very simple example of something he did that I think all viewers should be able to relate to. But back in the 90s, he bought a big house, used to belong to Katharine Graham's family, the owner of the Washington Post, up north of the city. And he was planning to redevelop it. The local people fought him and essentially stopped the redevelopment. So he started using it as a retreat for the Trump family. And if you go on the Trump Organization website today, you will see that it says right there, this is used as a retreat for the Trump family. But what he does differently from my family and your family is he has taken write-offs for tax purposes for all the expenses of running that property. So for the maintenance and for the property taxes and for the utilities and for everything, he's writing that off against his taxes. I don't know anyone who does that with their weekend house. It is patently illegal, but it is the kind of things he does, cutting every corner, doing everything he can to minimize his taxes. So his low taxes are partly a function of the fact that he's a terrible businessman, but partly a fact that in my 40 years or so on Wall Street dealing with taxes, I have never seen anyone cut as many corners, take as many liberties, and frankly break the law when it comes to his taxes.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.